Good evening, and thank you for watching. My name is Rachel Leingang. I'm the co-founder of the Arizona Agenda, and I'll be the moderator for this evening's debate. The Citizens Clean Elections Commission is the sponsor of this event. As the state's voter education agency, Clean Elections hosts debates, so voters have the opportunity to hear directly from the candidates, ask questions on the issues that matter most to them, and vote informed. Candidates that have a contested primary election have been invited to participate in the debate. Candidates that have opted into the Clean Elections Clean Funding Program are required to participate, while traditional candidates are invited and encouraged to attend. When voting in a primary election, voters are choosing between candidates of the same political party, so their preferred nominee may advance to the general election. As the moderator, I will ensure candidates have the opportunity to engage directly with their respective opponents. The questions that will be asked this evening are coming directly from voters. Leading up to the debates, Clean Elections conducted outreach to voters across the state asking for questions for the candidates. Additionally, Clean Elections surveyed voters to learn what issues are important to them. This survey data, along with input from the experienced journalists at the Arizona Capitol Times, Arizona Agenda, Green Valley News, and Sahuarita Sun, have been utilized to guide the discussion so it best serves voters. Of course, we want to hear directly from you, the voter. So voters that are watching this debate live, you can submit a question at any time by emailing debates@kc-a.com, texting 480-808-1814, or calling 480-937-1253. Please specify if your question is for a specific candidate or for all candidates. We screen questions for clarity to eliminate duplicates, speeches, or personal attacks on candidates. The debate is scheduled for 1 hour, so we may not get to all audience questions, but we'll do our best. Candidates, you will have 1 minute for your opening and closing statements and 1 to 2 minutes for your responses to voter questions. We encourage an open exchange of dialogue between opponents. If you feel the need to respond to another candidate's comments, you may do so. I may limit responses for time management purposes, and we remind the candidates and the audience that this is a respectful, courteous, and professional environment. Our goal tonight is to connect candidates and voters so our electorate may vote informed. We have 3 candidates tonight running for the Republican nomination for the State House in Legislative District 7, Representative David Cook, Representative John Fillmore, and Mr. David Marshall. So the order in which the candidates will speak for opening statements has been determined by alphabetical order. So we'll start with Mr. Cook.
Thank you. Thank you for doing this. My name is David Cook. I'm a rancher from Globe, Arizona. I'm the only rancher in the state legislature. That's what got me to run in 2016. My wife and I own DC Cattle Company. And this is my 4th Clean Elections debate. I wish it could have been in person like the original first ones. I'm looking forward to answering any and all questions that the voters may have and getting the right message out that I believe that at this time that our country is in our state, with all of the things we have facing us, the information they're looking for.
We'll go to Mr. Fillmore next.
Thank you very much. My name is John Fillmore. I'm a small businessman out of Apache Junction. I'm a veteran, an entrepreneur. I know how difficult it is, especially in these trying times, to try to build a business, run a business, and deal with the economy the way it is. I am a strong conservative. I've been rated 100% conservative by the Arizona Free Enterprise. I have a 96 nationally from CPAC. I've been endorsed by Congressman Gosar and by Sylvia Allen, and as ASRA, the Arizona Republican Committee. I am not politically correct. I have been known to say things that a lot of people's eyebrows go up, but I speak from the heart. I mean no ill will towards anybody. I am what I am. I look forward to serving LD7 as I have LD16 for the past several years. And with that, I hope you have open ears and we're able to decipher what I'm trying to say tonight. Thank you.
Thanks. And Mr. Marshall?
Hi, my name is Dave Marshall, and I'm new to the political arena. I am a veteran. I am a retired police officer, and currently I've been a pastor for 23 years for Calvary Chapel Snowflake. And I'm running because I want to make a difference. I'm not happy with the direction that our country nor our state's going in. I'm not happy with our educational system. I'm not happy with a lot of things, our forestry. And so I'm running to be your voice. I'm running to make a difference. I'm somebody new with fresh eyes and fresh ears to serve this district. So I'm looking forward to the questions that you're posing. May have answers, may not have answers, but we'll do our best. So thank you for having this again, and looking forward to getting through this debate.
Thank you all. We'll start with a pretty broad question here. Since this is a newly formed legislative district and the boundary is quite large geographically, there are vast differences of people who live in the district. How will each of you be prepared to represent citizens spanning from Williams to Apache Junction to Mammoth to Oracle? We'll start with Mr. Fillmore this time.
Thank you very much. Rachel, quite honestly, that had a lot to do with me meeting up with Mr. Marshall. We are running jointly because of his locale where he lives up by Show Low and me down in Apache Junction. I did represent the lower part of Pinal County 10 years ago in LD 23, Oracle, San Manuel, Kearney, Apache Junction. So when you look at the district and the way it is split, we have over 10,000 square miles. It's 791 mile perimeter, and it's huge. So in order for us to be able to ensure that we represent and have the opportunity to meet, it's important that we have a relationship with the other members of the House and that they can coordinate the conversations from the cities and the towns and the individual peoples, and so that we can speak. But they also need to be able to have someone that they can talk to physically. And so I think with Mr. Marshall up north and me down south, we make a nice, comfortable pair.
Mr. Marshall?
Well, this is a very large district. A little bit different, you know, northern Arizona has a lot of forest, has a lot of ranching, a lot of farming, and even down south, you get down the areas of Kearney, you get down areas, those areas down there, there's ranching as well. And so, as Mr. Fillmore just said, that, you know, we're going to be traveling a lot, but we need to make ourselves accessible to all people. We're not just running for Republicans, we're running for the district, and we're running to represent everybody, no matter where the district takes us. We weren't expecting this large of a district, especially with the gas prices today, and especially if you drive a big truck. But we are going to represent those in the South, those in the middle, and those in the North equally and fairly, and we're going to be their voice.
Mr. Cook?
Yeah, I would like to just say that I'm not looking for anybody to do the work except myself. I'm looking to educate not only my seatmates in the new district, but also the other colleagues in the House of Representatives to solve all the issues. You know, I heard Mr. Marshall say that he's running because he doesn't like what the state or the country is headed into. Well, Mr. Fillmore has said that what he wants to do is team up with Mr. Marshall so he can be on hands on deck in the upper northern part. Well, I'm going to do it all. If we just take one thing of the Apache Junction, which is part of this new district added to mine, is that the transportation problems that area has had for over 20 years. Those citizens come to me today for a bypass around Gold Canyon and Apache Junction and the north-south corridor and those things. So if you've been effective, like I have been, for those issues that affect those people just over the line of my old district, my current district number 8, then that is why these people are reaching out to me today throughout those 5 counties, 5 community colleges, about the results that I have done. And that's what I have pledged to them to do, is not to look to somebody else, but to actually solve the problems to help them make their lives better.
A couple of you mentioned forests, and we're dealing with wildfire season again, a few fires burning throughout the state. What do you think needs to be done by the state in order to better manage wildfires? We'll start with Mr. Marshall this time.
Well, I believe that what needs to be done by the state is to recover our forests. Right now, I believe it's 42% of our forest is in control by the federal government. Federal government has not been impressive in managing our forests. We've had tons of fires over the years, some massive fires over the years. And what we need to do is, if it's possible, even if we have to sue the federal government, petition or resolution to get our forest back so that we as Arizonans can manage our own forest. Can you imagine if we have possession of our forest, all of our forests, the amount of people that we can put to work in the forest to start managing it, to start cleaning it, to start cutting trees down. Some years ago, when we had the paper mills and they were dealing with the forest, we were bringing in approximately $500 million a year in revenue because of the forestry, because of the paper mills and what they were doing. You're watching the fires over in New Mexico right now. Both of those fires were controlled burns by the federal government. They lost control, they merged, and now they're burning over 600 miles. We need to get our forest back. We need to be in control of our forest, and we need to see what we can do as legislators to do that.
Representative Cook?
Yeah, well, that's what I mean about experience and having over 25 years in dealing with these types of problems and working from private organizations to help solve these. First of all, anybody that thinks they're going to go to the state legislature and they're going to take over the forest and everything back knows nothing about the Endangered Species Act. They know nothing about the Land Management Agency that pays FLTMA and that pays the payment in lieu of taxes to the counties. They don't know how the federal system works. And if that's what they'd like to change, then that's the office they should be running for. So when we look at the fire that is 20,000 acres right now currently going on into Flagstaff, at least they finally arrested the man that they believe started that fire and has caused all that damage and all that turmoil for those people that are out there. That is why the experience that I have in dealing with this stuff, the speaker gave me an ad hoc committee in which we went throughout the state looking at 4 fires that wreaked havoc and burnt down over 100 homes, did over $30 million worth of damage to state highways and guardrail and stuff to find the solution. And I'm proud to say that the solutions at the state level are now currently being done. There's only one thing out of the entire ad hoc committee that we're running that hasn't been done, and that's where I'm fighting the insurance industry alone. So if you could think about if you had insurance on a home and 100 homes burnt down, but one did not, but because of the fire, it got flooded out, the insurance company should be liable for that home. And we've tried to come to a compromise for 6 months after the termination of that fire date. Well, the insurance company doesn't be liable at all because they say it'll drive up insurance rates. Well, what does the 99 homes that burnt down do if one home you have to protect do that? So that's where we're at today. We're not giving up on that legislation. Insurance companies have tried to go around us in the House of Representatives, but my colleagues have stuck with me on principle.
Thank you. Representative Fillmore?
Thank you very much. I agree with Representative Cook in regards to the insurance problems and things of that nature, and especially in light of the fires that we had last year, which were truly destructive to Globe and areas of that nature. But I remember back there was a state representative out of Heber by the name of Chester Crandall that said that, that we should request to get our lands back. The federal government required that we give up so much of it. And, we have to remember that we are, the state of Arizona is actually supreme in these issues. And the federal government has really run amok. The fact is that we need to have people that are willing to stand up to the federal government, as Mr. Marshall had indicated, and say, hey, this is the state of Arizona, and you have created a lot of the problems because of some of the policies and programs that you have. We have a lack of leadership in the governor and the House Speaker. That won't stand up to the federal government, and that they seem to lack the ability to coordinate and get things done. Look at it as like, for instance, on our budget. We should have been out of session over a month and a half ago, and we're still dragging feet, things of that nature. The federal system is all fouled up. They are paying, and I don't think that committees are going to do anything. We don't need to talk about the endangered animals and things of that nature. What we need to do is cut out the undergrowth and allow the states to have more control of our land.
I'd like to respond to that.
Go ahead.
Okay, so this is what we hear from a lot of individuals about taking the federal land back. Okay, that's an easy one-line statement that you might say on a campaign trail or in a stump speech. But where the hard work is really done is when you sit down and you say, well, how much land, where at, what's it going to cost, right? I mean, the Louisiana Purchase was exactly that, a purchase. The federal government owns the land. What would be our plan to go in there, and who is going to pay for that? The taxpayers are going to pay for the management of that land. So it's like buying a house that is run down that needs to be remodeled at this point, in my opinion. At what cost to the Arizona taxpayers are you willing to put us on the hook when the federal government has created the problem? They're the ones that need to do the remodeling themselves out of their own coffers and not putting it back on the taxpayers as we continue every single year to cut taxes for citizens of the state of Arizona.
Well, if I may, Rachel, on that point, and I hear what Representative Cook just said, and he talks about the hard work and things of that nature, but you know, the reality of it is that we can talk, and that some of what I am espousing is not something that you will find on the campaign trail. What I'm talking about is states' rights. I'm talking about the ability of the state of Arizona to stand up to the federal government. We have the capability of doing it, and not compromising with the federal government as we have been doing for so many years. You know, we can, you know, I acknowledge that the federal government, as Mr. Cook said, they created a lot of the problems. We need to hold them accountable for it.
You had mentioned the federal government a few times, so moving toward that, you know, in terms of the border right now, what role do you see that the state should take on that, and how can the state work with the federal government on immigration issues? We'll start this time with Mr. Cook again.
I'm sorry, did you say me? Okay, so the border issue is nothing new. For the past 25 years, it's been a political hot topic of the open borders and things like that. And I wish more people would have stepped up and supported President Trump and being president, not only when he ran the first time, but definitely the second time, because it was his policies that he put in place. What he said he would do is that's what he was working towards, while he was tried to be stopped at every single turn there is. Now, I heard someone say the other day on their campaign trail, they're going to arm the guard and send them down to the border. Well, as a rancher and a father, I sit there and say, what are you going to do? You want to arm these soldiers to send them down to the border to shoot women and children? See, that's what I mean about a plan of what to do and how to do that. Those are human beings, and they're not Mexicans. They're coming from all over the world that are trying to get into this country illegally. However, then you hear people say about, well, we should arrest them. Okay, we should arrest them for trespass, which is a cite and release offense, because those are federal charges. Now we're going to take on the federal government's job. We have funded, continue to fund, and the Republican governors of this great country are now funding a larger part of the Border Strike Task Force. We don't need to create a state guard or anything else. We are getting it done as best as we possibly can. However, it's the federal government's job to do this, and the President of the United States has utterly failed us miserably here in Arizona.
Representative Fillmore?
Yeah, Rachel, if I could respond to that, because I differ a little bit with Representative Cook, and the fact is that the state of Arizona can do a lot. Attorney General Brnovich has given a legal opinion that we are under an invasion. And the United States Constitution says under Article 1, Section 10, and in the 10th Amendment of the Constitution, if an invasion is actually taken in place, then the state government becomes superior. All the governor has to do is finally get the backbone to say that we are in an invasion, and then the state has the right, and this has been supported by several of the candidates for Attorney General, including a former member of the Arizona Supreme Court, that we do have the right to do that. And I have put on the table and actually contacted the governor's office and said, why are we not? I believe that what we have the capability of doing is taken when the feds, and it is the federal government that has let us down, and they've been letting us down for 25 years. In 25 years, all we've been doing is getting talk and talk and talk. And I'm saying, no, what we need to do is when the feds are moving as the the Federal Immigration Act says, if they're transporting or harboring things of that nature, the state of Arizona has the right to arrest the people that are moving the people, to confiscate the buses, the aircraft, and the motels and hotels that they're harboring in. What we need is leadership coming out of the Ninth Floor, and we're not getting it on this issue. But the state has the right, especially now as we are being invaded. And we can't let this go on another 25 years.
Mr. Marshall?
Well, for the past 25 years, as they both have espoused, both parties have failed in the immigration issue, both parties. Even when President Trump had the House, although he was being fought at every corner, every movement that he would do, we did not do anything with immigration. When the Republicans had it, we did nothing. When the Democrats had it, we did nothing. And the results is what we're seeing today. We're seeing an invasion on our border. Texas right now, Texas is stopping. Texas is arresting people, and they are giving them options to return or be incarcerated for a period of time. Whatever period of time that is, I'm not certain, but they are giving them an option. We have a National Guard. We have DPS. Why aren't we down on the border being a deterrent at least, instead of just leaving the gate wide open and allowing them to freely come through? This is going to be a massive impact on our social services, not just in Arizona, but across the country. We need to stand up and do something. We need to protect our state. We need to also protect the citizens of the state. And so I think that there's avenues that we look at. Representative Fillmore named some things off that we can do. And even through Brnovich, through what he had just dictated, that yes, this is an invasion and we need to do something. So what are we going to do about it? Everybody sits and they make ideas. They have all these different ideas, but nobody moves on the ideas. We need to do something to stop this invasion coming across the border.
I'd like to respond to that.
Or go ahead.
We'll have Mr. Representative Cook and then Representative Fillmore. Did you want to respond as well? We'll start with Representative Cook and go from there.
Yeah, when the public hears words, you're not doing anything about it, that is simply not true. That is absolutely false. We have been giving tens of millions of dollars to, for instance, the Cochise County Sheriff's Department for years that I've been down there, and we have helped them grow their border system of cameras and staff to monitor those cameras. So when they go on alert, they do go arrest these people. God bless my friends Jim and Sue Chiltern, who live on the border for 10 and 12 years. They've been taking people down there. We've been taking them about where these traffickers are coming across. These people are being arrested. Just because someone sees something on the news that says, here's what's happening in Del Rio, Texas, what you don't see is it happening in Nogales, Arizona, or to the effect of Yuma, Arizona. Is it happening? Yes, but not at the magnitude it's happening in Texas. And the reason why the national news is focusing on Texas is because for down there, we have spent, again, tens and tens of millions of dollars. And in this budget, we're going to spend more. We've got $400 million scheduled to help try to finish the wall or the border fence, whatever you want to call it. And in some places, it will be legally impossible to ever build that fence. So we are taking the next step forward for drones and other measures so these people can be apprehended. So we are doing something, and we've done a lot. That's why you're seeing Texas on the television a lot more than what you're seeing it in Arizona.
Well,
Representative Fillmore?
Rachel, thank you very much. I would disagree with that because, quite frankly, it's kind of like earlier when the statement was made that, when the suggestion was put that we send the National Guard down there and we actually enforce our border, and the comment was, we're going to shoot men and women and children. Those are the kind of arguments that the Democrats raise when they try to say that we are lionizing the issue down there. In Yuma, the mayor has declared a city emergency because of all of the people coming over the border. If anybody thinks that there are not more people coming across our border now than there was 2 years or 3 years or 5 years ago, then I have to tell you, I don't know what they've been drinking or smoking. The reality of it is that everything that has been being done for the last 25 years is political smoke and mirrors. It's a bunch of BS. The border guard and things of that they are doing. It's kind of like over in Texas where they're taking and they're busing a few hundred people over to Washington, D.C. and then letting them go and then getting a lot of press on that. What's it accomplishing? Not a darn thing. The fact is that we need to stand up for our state's rights. We need to secure our borders. The federal government's not. We have been, it has been placed that we are in an invasion, and I believe that we are. The governor has the ability to do something, but doesn't have the backbone. And I think that we should be doing a lot more, and we are capable of doing a lot more. We need to do the DPS.
Let's switch gears to a different topic, education. What kind of support do teachers need in the classroom, and how can state lawmakers assist in getting them what they need? What are they not currently getting from this legislature? We'll start this time with Mr. Cook.
Well, you would have to have, what I do is I sit down with the school superintendents every year. And the first thing I'm going to say about the teachers in the classrooms in the schools is being a champion for rural Arizona. A lot of people talk about that, but that small school districts have been suffering. And those that were down there long before me, I got a long list about how they ran for office and never did. But when I went down there and found out the problems, I started solving them. So what I did was I first took on what the rollovers were in these small school districts. That is money. $1 billion. The state of Arizona is in debt to our K through 12 school districts. And if it wasn't for me down there championing it, and finally this year, I think we've cracked that egg with the majority of our caucus, because now we're even paying more of those school districts back. So what the school needs in resources, how about having their debt paid? When you're a state representative and you have a school district that has 9,000 to 12,000 kids in it, and you have to take days for them to negotiate their credit line with their banking system because they're owed taxpayer money for their local school districts, and then they want to go out to bonding for property owners on top of that, I say, let's pay them back the money that they owe, that they're owed, and then we can start from ground zero. Is that we need more money. How about we just pay the money back to the school districts we owed? So in this budget, we're going to pay back Show Low, we're going to pay back Apache Junction, and we're going to pay those school districts, about 3,500 and below of what I've been championing, will now all be paid back across the state, and no one else can say that here.
Mr. Marshall, we'll go to you next.
I'll repeat that question, please.
Sure. So what kind of support do teachers need in the classroom, and what are they not getting from the current legislature?
Well, since I'm not in the legislation right now, I'm not 100% certain, but however, they do need the support they need. I've talked to some teachers, especially where I live at here, and the biggest thing that they talk about is their pay. And they say that their pay is disproportionate to those in the South, down in the valley, compared to what we're receiving up here. Now, I know that the schools receive a lot of money. I believe, if I'm correct, the budget this year for the school district through the state is $9 billion. And then you have the federal dollars that will roll in. This is what I was just told recently that the new budget is. I haven't seen the budget. And if that's the case, my question is, why aren't the teachers receiving the pay that they're due? Why aren't they receiving that support? Because I have teachers up here that are taking money out of their own wallets and their own purses, paying for supplies for their classrooms, and that shouldn't have to. That shouldn't happen. The money, what I'm hearing and what I've been told is the money is there. So why aren't we supporting our teachers? Why aren't we taking care of our teachers in the classrooms? I saw your pin go up.
Yes, Representative Fillmore.
Thank you very much. Throwing money at education is definitely not the answer, and that's what everyone seems to think that it is. Fact of the matter is as Mr. Marshall just said, we start talking about $9 billion. You take that by the amount of kids that are in the classes. A lot of people don't want to admit this, but do you know that over 60% of the kids are below 50% proficiency in math and English in the state of Arizona? That is unacceptable. It is embarrassing, and it is wrong. And all I get from the schools is more money, more money, more money. I went and I put on the table several years ago, we have 227 school districts. We only have 15 counties. We could get rid of the redundancy, the duplication, the waste and mismanagement of the school administration. And I showed where we could save over $500 million, and every single penny of that was to stay in the school districts. 25% of all of the money saved by statute was to go to the teachers. Teachers want to teach. I believe that they want to teach. But the fact of the matter is that we need to get more money to the rural schools, and we can do it without just throwing the money at them. The money should go with the students, and the kids up in Show Low or Pine or wherever should get the same amount of money as the kids going to Scottsdale. And we need to have a complete reworking of the financial structure of how we're paying for schools. I think school choice is going to be a big thing. I think that if we can increase the ESA program or actually get the vouchers where the money follows the student, that's the answer right there. And we need to hold the teachers, and I don't mean this derogatorily towards them, because by God, they're doing a heck of a job. I wouldn't want to be locked up in a room with a bunch of raging kids with hormones going amok and everything of that nature. I respect them. I know what they did when they taught me, and I know what they're capable of doing.
Can I respond to that?
Yes, go ahead.
Yeah, so just make sure we bring it back down to reality in some of these things. It's not a $9 billion budget. It's 53% of our state budget goes to K through 12 education. And teachers pay, we were the champions. There were 7 of us Republicans worked with the governor's office to do the 20 by 2020 plan. That was a 20% raise. When Democrats said they would never vote for teacher pay raises that weren't 5%, then we put our heads together, found out where to come up with the money, and we gave teachers a 20% pay raise over 3 years. Now, because we're doing that, we're doing the same thing with the Department of Public Safety, the same thing with the Department of Corrections. We take problems and we solve those problems. Now, you cannot say that rural Arizona needs the same amount of money as some school district in Chandler or Scottsdale. That's not going to happen. And I'll tell you why. Because when people live in rural Arizona, you understand the complexities of population growth that do not grow, that have large distances from those students' homes to get them to school, and the ability to retain and retract those quality teachers. That's why for the past several years at the State House, we have developed programs to home grow teachers. So people that like living in those communities can get their education, get their teaching certificates, and stay in those communities that they know and love, and then they continue to teach. Because if you hire a first-year teacher out of Chandler and you hire him in Globe, or you send him to Pleasant Valley, which is such a small school district, you can't even figure out how to fund something so small. But if you take a teacher from Chandler and bring them up to a rural community, they're going to be online, I promise you, after the first 6 months, searching for a teaching job back in Chandler. So if you want to solve—
Representative Cook. Thank you. Let's move on to gas prices. As I'm sure we all know, they've skyrocketed in the past year. Arizona adds an additional 18-cent tax on every gallon of gas that pays for road maintenance and construction. Since that is within your purview as a member of the state legislature, do you want to, do you support suspending the gas tax to help ease some of that pain? If so, how would you make up funds for, roads if that gas goes away for a while? We'll start this time with Mr. Marshall.
State tax, the gas tax, 18 cents. We're at over $5 now a gallon for gas. And when you look at the big picture, 18 cents is not going to bring comfort to a lot of people. Yeah, will we be taking this away from the roads and repairs, infrastructure? Yeah, 18 cents, I think a lot of people would like to see, instead of 18 cents, how about $2 reduction in gas? I don't see where this would help the normal citizens of the state of Arizona, especially when you're paying $5 a gallon of gas. For diesel, you're paying closer to $6 a gallon of gas. So if it was $6 a gallon of gas, you're taking 18 out, what are you getting? You're still paying, as a diesel owner myself, you're still paying $100 to $30, $160, $70. And so it's not making a big dent. I think what we need to do is that pressure needs to be put on the White House. And it needs to go through Congress and the Senate to put pressure on the White House to return back to Trump era energy prices, drilling oil, and also opening up the pipeline again. I don't think a lot of people are going to be impressed with 18 cents because you're still going to be paying a ton of money out of pocket.
Thank you. Mr. Representative Fillmore?
Absolutely. The 18 cents a gallon is an insult if we ever did something like that. What that is just a gimmick of politicians to make it sound good. It ain't going to do a darn thing. And quite frankly, I think it would be an insult to me or anybody because 18 cents is ludicrous. Fact of the matter is, I don't believe we have the ability to do much at all, as much as I would like to be able to do something, except the state has the ability to stand up to the federal government. They get their money from us. I believe the state of Arizona should take and advance the states' rights issue. I believe that we should withhold some of the highway money from the federal government, and let's force them into having a constitutional crisis that we can talk about. Because the Biden administration is hell-bent on destroying the free enterprise economy and system. And that's what this is all about, is their rush to this new green deal, thinking that we're all going to be able to drive these electrical cars and crap like that. It ain't going to happen. And quite frankly, they are more detrimental to the environment than carbon-based fuels as it is. But the gimmick of 18 cents, that's a political joke and an absurdity that I would resist 100%.
Representative Cook?
Yeah, I would just like to say that I would totally disagree with what my two friends here just said. First of all, the word gimmick was used by the Governor Ducey when I proposed to suspend the gas tax in March of this year. And then what can we do? Well, what I did was when Russia invaded Ukraine, the speaker wouldn't allow me to introduce the legislation that I wanted. So I had to do a proclamation in which I reached across the aisle to Democrats. And what we did is we asked the Biden administration to do two things. One is boycott Russian oil. And the other thing was to reevaluate the Biden's administration's energy and natural resource policies. It was that simple. Both of those things happened. The United States boycotted Russian oil, and I can't control where he goes looking for it after that point. And they did try to change some of their federal land leases, but it wasn't enough and still is not enough today. So what I've heard is gimmick, like Governor Ducey said by Mr. Fillmore, and then the 18 cents a gallon is a nothing. Well, let me tell you what 18 cents a gallon means. It means that for 6 months, in just 6 months' time, the total of that 18 cents is $800 million. And that $800 million is coming out of the taxpayers and families' pockets at the gas pump, small businesses, and large both that are paying that 18 cents. So if you can think about the historic tax cuts that some people want to say we just passed at the state legislature, actually means to somebody making $65,000 to $85,000 a year is going to get $40 a year, and they'll have to wait until next May to get that $40. That 18 cents they would receive in 3 to 4 weeks easily if they're driving to and from work. The other thing is that $800 million would be directly infused into our economy immediately, and they wouldn't be waiting for a tax return next May to get that. So it's $800 million. Everybody can write that down. That's 6 months that directly would be money pumped into our economy immediately that wouldn't have to be waited on. Now, where do we get that?
Thank you, Representative. It's been a couple minutes on that one, so we got to move on.
And I would like to respond to that, if I may, please, Rachel,
Sure.
because quite honestly, when we start talking about, not taking the Russian oil, which was a correct move from day one, now the Biden administration wants to take it and give our money to Iran, who wants to cut our heads off, and they want to build their atomic bomb, which the Democrats have given them the ability to do so. So what we need to do is open up the pipeline, get rid of the rules and regulations that the Biden administration has put on private enterprise, and make ourselves energy efficient once again, as we were under former President Trump. And as far as the tax cuts, you know what? We have the ability to cut the taxes, and we were able to give the average individual people back $640 annually on that. It was not a gimmick or anything like that. But when people work with the Democrats and then they talk about we can get the 18 cents off, that's really, if you look at it, 18 cents a gallon, you got 20-gallon gas tank. What is that? $3.60, and you can go 400 miles, 500 miles on a full tank of gas. And you might do that 4 or 5 times a week. So in a month, you're going to spend $20, which is $240 a year. But if we can cut their taxes by $600, $700, $800, and they have more money to that, that's the way to go. That's what it's all about, free enterprise.
Let's move on to another economic and environmental issue. Arizona's water supply from the Colorado River will be curtailed. Further cuts are expected in the future. There's also concerns about groundwater use and wells running dry in rural Arizona. Where and how do you think the state could find more water supply? We'll start with Representative Fillmore this time.
Thank you, Rachel. I'll be the first to admit that I am not an authority on water issues, and I am lacking in this, and I acknowledge that. I look forward to working with other people. I think the big water guru, in my opinion, in the past was Representative Pratt, who worked with the farmers well down in Pinal County. I will say this, though, that there's a couple different programs being floated around the state legislature, and what I want to ensure is the fact that I believe the counties should have the right to have a say what they can do with the local water and the amount of drilling that is being done. Right now we have foreign corporations that are buying up land over in La Paz and sucking hundreds and hundreds of thousands of dollars of or gallons of water out that they're building the stuff, which is then being shipped overseas. I can't say, what the water issues are. I will wait and listen and learn over the next week, but I do not like the idea of the state having the ability, as they are proposing in one of them, to sell the water. The last thing I'd ever want is the state to have the ability to control the water of individuals and the counties, because they would utilize that as a weapon. It's just a matter of time. That's their nature of it.
Representative Cook?
Well, I do know. I'm probably the third person I would say at the House of Representatives that knows about water. So it's such a technical issue. But here's what I'll say is about Arizona's water. This time last year, I said we were going to go into a tier 2 shortage in the state of Arizona. We need $3 billion over 10 years to address these water shortages. Pinal County, through DCP, lost their water 4 years earlier, and they need $56 million for their infrastructure for giving up that water early. The state legislature is who I had to fight to make sure they had the funding for those wells and infrastructure they needed. Now, if you look at the San Carlos Irrigation Water and Drainage District that was put in the 1920s, we are wasting 55,000 acre feet of water, which would be saved for the county that needs it the most today in Pinal County. Now, why isn't someone joining me and the speaker to address these conservation issues? The thing that we need to store water down there near I-8 and I-10, which would be a huge economic resource for Pinal County and their future growth. Think about that. If someone would have done this 10 years ago, we'd have over 550,000 acre feet of water. 550,000 acre feet of water. And so what we're doing to address Lake Mead, there's two different types of water. There's in-state water, in which the state we have control over, and then there's water from out of state. There are constitutional questions that I have given, and I just talked to the Pinal Partnership about this last Friday, is that we need to make sure that we're on solid ground and exactly not take some idea that we have states' rights and we can do what we want as part of a union. But also, because think about it, the state of Arizona can't buy avocados and watermelons from the country of Mexico and bring them in when we want. We can't do that. We have trade agreements. That's what NAFTA is for. We have interstate commerce pacts. And so all of these things have to be legally flushed out, because if I'm going to jump off the cliff, I want to make sure my chute's packed. I'm just not going to jump off the cliff.
Thank you. Mr. Marshall?
Well, I'm probably in the same boat with Mr. Fillmore here. I just started doing research on the water issues here. And I know what I've been told is we do definitely have major water issues. I've been hearing other representatives espousing that maybe we should draw water from the Mississippi River, or maybe we should do desalination systems to bring water in from the ocean. Well, when you research that, you look, that's a very costly process. And you're talking about billions of dollars to run a system like that from the ocean or even from Mississippi. And then you think about the different states you go through and the contracts that you would have to make with them. Right now, I've been in contact with CAP, learning more about our water issue so that I can be up on the issue. So again, I'm not that up on the issue, and I'm not going to sit here and throw things at you, and that's not going to stick. But I am still working on it. I'm still learning as I go.
I'd like to respond to that.
Sure, go ahead.
Yeah, so Mr. Marshall is doing great for saying that that's what he wants to do, is come down and serve. Is CAP is one of the experts in water policy throughout this state. Salt River Project, we have several different types of water system, and like San Carlos Irrigation District. I believe what happened in the 1980s in the Groundwater Management Settle Act is the Colorado River had been over allocated. And at some point in time, we're going to have to realize that, and we're going to have to go out and find new water and purchase water, not rent water to leave into the lake. So when someone wants to take $32 million taxpayer dollars to rent water to leave it into the lake, in which they would still own just to leave it at a certain level, then that is when I say politicians are just kicking the can down the road, and we're not addressing the needs of the citizens of this state today like we should.
Thank you. We're running out of time here. I want to make sure we get a couple more topics in. So the U.S. Supreme Court is considering a case that could overturn the Roe versus Wade precedent on abortion access. In what situations, if any, do you believe that abortions should be legal? We'll start with Mr. Marshall this time.
Well, I am a pro-lifer. I'm a pastor. And the only reason that I believe that abortion would be okay is if a mother's life is in danger. But I also believe that that decision should be left with their doctors and their families, and not with the legislators, not with the courts. Again, that's the only reason I believe that we should allow abortion.
Mr. Fillmore?
I believe in the sanctity of life. I believe that life is good. I believe that we must at all costs preserve and protect the unborn as well as the born. The fact of the matter is, from my perspective as a man, first of all, I want to be the first to say that I'm proactive in that, and I don't know if this is politically appropriate to say, but I had my cords tied about 30 years ago when I decided I did not want to have any more children. And I think that what happens in our society is that we have a lot of fathers out there that are not fathers, that never become dads. All they do is procreate and move on. And it leaves a woman with the choice of, what am I going to be doing? I believe that we have the ability to work with adoption and things of that nature. The nuclear family is being destroyed, and it has been. And abortion, which is a form of murder, for an unborn child, not giving them the opportunities to believe in the greatness of our country and the world, and to live a real full life. I'll always be supportive of saying that the child should be born and have the opportunity of life.
Representative Cook?
Well, I'd just like to say this is probably the easiest question I've had here to answer, being a Catholic, is that the only time that abortion should be allowed, and that is a decision like Mr. Marshall said, and those families need to make, is during rape, incest, or the danger of the mother's life. And so a couple things come to mind is that, God says he knew each and every one of us when we were in the womb. And the second thing is Mother Teresa answered a question one time about the United States. She was asked, why don't you think the United States has a woman president by now? And she replied, you may have aborted her. So that's where I stand. There's no other way to say it.
Let's move into elections. A straightforward one. Who do you believe won the presidential election in 2020? And do you believe the same candidate won in Arizona? We'll start this time with Representative Cook.
The presidential election in 2020?
Yes,
I believe that Mr. Biden is the current president. He was sworn in under oath of this country. Whether I agree that he's the one I wanted to win the election is, of course, absolutely not, right? But what I hear about the election is that there are all these problems. The election was stolen. Well, they were not stolen in rural Arizona. President Trump won over 72% in my district. I know because we knocked thousands and thousands of doors for him, right? Now, you hear, then you read and you see, and what I'm looking for is the leadership that we've heard so much about here. President Fan has conducted an audit of the election of Maricopa County. We have read what those reports say. I have had President Fan at my house just a week or so ago to speak to the public about what those election findings are. Now, I'm looking for the Attorney General's office to either start prosecuting or denouncing that there were any problems in election. There are some problems with election. There's always been some problems with some type of election at some level. But however, we can address those. And that would be no problem for us to do at the state legislature.
Mr. Marshall?
I agree. Joe Biden is the sitting president today. But however, I believe that the election was stolen from President Trump. There's been so many what would we say? There have been so many investigations across this country, from Wisconsin to Michigan to Georgia and Texas, where they are coming up with a lot of irregularities, a lot of numbers, a lot of found ballots, a lot of duplicate ballots that has, in a lot of their opinion, would have changed and shifted the numbers, and Trump would have won those areas. I agree as well, though, but we need to continue to investigate, and decisions need to be made in each and every one of these states. Did he win, or are you going to denounce that he did win? It has to come out, and the public needs to hear this. They need to hear from each state that is doing their investigations what the findings are. I can't believe that personally that Joe Biden won this election from his basement. He campaigned from his basement, and when he went out in public, he would hardly be able to garner 100 or 200 people when President Trump was garnering thousands, tens of thousands of people. And it showed just common sense. And common sense, it shows you that there's something was definitely wrong in this election. I saw the pen.
Representative Fillmore?
I believe that Joe Biden is the president, but I believe that Joe Biden is an illegal president. That said, I look at what happened in 2020, and this to me is just a got you or a catch you moment that media likes to put on all Republicans to ask us, because the fact of the matter is that when I look back at historically what happened in 2020, it does not gel for me. I dropped some bills and I made some proposals. My House Bill 2289, which the Speaker of the House, who said he did not even think that we should have a requirement of signatures on mail-in ballots or validation of that. But the fact of the matter is 2289 was the bill that said we should have the voting in the precinct of your registration on paper, actual counting, hand counting of it, and stop some of the ballot harvesting, controlled mail-out ballots, not just rampant throw it all out there. You know, most people are not aware, we've actually had convictions in the state of Arizona for the theft of ballot harvesting, like they talked about in some of the movie 2,000 Mules or whatever the heck it is. And I don't place much emphasis on those things. What I know is what I saw. What I know is what I believe, and they'll close the casket. You'll never convince me that the legitimate presidency of the greatest country in the earth wasn't stolen right in front of the whole world.
Can I respond to that real quick?
Sure.
My wife and I, we've been voting in the state of Arizona for 23 years. Absentee ballots. This past election in 2020, I always hand deliver my ballots to the drop box at the courthouse here in Snowflake, Arizona. Dropped it off, and when the election was over, my vote was never registered or counted, neither was my wife. I was told I was not a registered voter. I've been voting for 23 years here. I had to re-register and get a new registration number because they could not find. You can't tell me that there were some major irregularities during this campaign. I've never had this happen to me ever, and it happened in 2020, along with a lot of other people up here in the mountain.
Rachel, could I make one other point? You're going to
Sure, be brief if you will.
I'm sorry?
Be brief if you will. We've just got a couple minutes
Well,
left.
you're going to hear a lot of talk about the drop boxes and all that. All that is just a side issue. It's unimportant because the fact of the matter is we have hundreds of thousands of drop boxes. And that's called the U.S. mail. We even give a postage paid envelope to the mailer to drop them into the mailboxes, not into a bunch of unwatched drop boxes. Drop boxes in the state of Arizona should be gone. Use the U.S. mail because there are federal convictions for years and years of imprisonment for stealing mail or committing fraud through the United States mail.
So we just have a few minutes left. That takes us to closing statements. And since we went in alphabetical order at the start, we'll go in reverse order this time. I'll give you each about a minute. That means we will begin with Mr. Marshall.
Well, I want to thank you for having this debate here on the little screens that we have in front of us. And I appreciate the time that you guys took to put this together. Again, I've been in service for 45 years. I've been in service in the military, law enforcement, and currently as a pastor. Do I have the experience? I kept hearing a lot about, you know, that's why you need experience. That's why you need experience. I'm reminded of even most of the legislators, John Fillmore himself, Mr. Cook, and others who also started in this career with no experience. You gain that experience while you are in the office, while you're sitting next to other legislators and learning the job. I have been fortunate this past year and a half to be able to shadow several legislators, men like Representative Walt Blackman, John Fillmore, Teresa Martinez. I've had those opportunities. It is not like I'm coming into this without any knowledge. I'm coming into this with some knowledge and some background. However, I know that it's a constant learning when you get into office. And my goal is to serve the people of Legislative District 7, no matter what party you're in. That's what we're called to do. That's why we run. That's why there's a vote. And that's why we represent. That's why it's called representation of representatives, is because we represent all the people of the district. And I want to be the voice of those in LD7, the fresh voice of those in LD7.
Thank you. Representative Fillmore?
Well, thank you. I think tonight we've heard a lot of conversation. We've heard a lot of contrast too amongst the three of us. A lot of it is just talk. They're speaking about more money and things of that nature. Throwing money at the problems is not going to be the solving the issue. And Mr. Marshall just spoke about it when you start talking about leadership and that. And I know that as a legislature here in the state of Arizona, we all start out fresh in that. But I want to point out that I've run 14 businesses. I've built one of the largest chain of retail stores of wood burning stoves in the Southwest United States. And that the ideas that I have put on the table, like my apprenticeship program, where high school kids are going to be able to enter into any apprenticeship in any field, not just building trades, that they want to, and have the opportunity to make anywhere from $15,000 to $35,000 given to them upon the completion of the apprenticeship program is going to be huge, not only for the workforce, but also for those kids that we keep pushing towards college when we don't do it. Some of the bills that I have proposed, for instance, saying that kids, if you don't know the standards in the 7th, 8th, or 9th grade, you got to stay back or repeat or go to summer school. Our schools just promote them. Why even have an education system if the kids don't have to work? I use common sense approaches to do it. I hope that the people in LD7 can see that I am a strong conservative, that I am outspoken in my belief about the greatness of America and the freedoms in our country which have been bestowed upon us. And I hope that they will send me back to represent them in the future.
Thank you. Representative Cook?
Yeah, thank you again for having this. And to the voters, I'd like to say that in my current district, LD8, every mayor of every city and town signed a letter that I was their champion. And both counties that I represent signed a similar letter that said I'd do that. I am thrilled about the excitement of the additional 3 counties and the new cities and towns of new LD7. I just can't tell you how I'm excited about, because these are brand new problems. As I've solved the problems in my current district, I'm going to solve the problems that have been lingering on in these other areas. And I look forward to the challenge, because I think that I can build the relationships as I've done to do that and to make their lives better. No matter, people talk about jobs all the time. I want these people to be able to stay in these small rural communities with entire careers. I want them to have the best education and rural healthcare systems available to them and their families, where they don't have to travel hours to receive that critical care that their loved ones may need. So once again, I thank you. My name is David Cook. I'd like your vote, and thank you again.
This concludes our debate. To our candidates, we thank you so much for participating. To the voters, we thank all of you who took the time to watch the debate and inform yourself before the August 2nd primary election. As a reminder, the voter registration deadline is July 5th, and early voting begins July 6th. All registered voters, including independent voters, can participate in the primary. We encourage you to visit azcleanelections.gov for official, accurate voting information. Have a good night, everyone.
You too. Thank you very much.